All righty, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Doc Hogg. Welcome to Indie Comic Stream number 24. Tonight, we are going to be discussing Macho Dano's book HIRO later on in the program. It was a good, enjoyable read. I'll just say that right off the bat, but my co-host and I will be discussing that. And of course, in a few minutes, we are going to have the legendary Graham Nolan on, who for many years had illustrated detective comics, something that I still read and is still enjoyable. But he has a crowdfunded project called the Chenoo, which just looks wonderful. So at any rate, before we do that, why don't we give I want to give my new co-host here, Revolution, and can we call you by your first name as well?
Yes, you can actually.
It's Alexander, and yeah, Jeremy Lott is going to be out for a couple of weeks, and while we're waiting for his return, Alexander has been nice enough to co-host with me for a little while. So just oh, and I should also mention that he is also the voice for the first Tilt commercial we did on YouTube. So why don't you just give us a brief introduction about yourself, and we will take it from there.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alexander. I am a professional videographer, photographer, voiceover artist, and just all-around technologist, hailing from the DC area. My experience with comics is a little bit limited, but I'm much more into print medium, but I find that comics as an art form are fascinating, and so this should be a heck of a lot of fun. I've worked with celebrities, models. I've done lingerie shoots. I did a burlesque show once, and half the fun of what I do is the insane stories I get to come back with, and just the really, really fascinating experiences and people that I get to have. So, I mean, I'm only on year 3 of this kind of stuff, but I mean, I look forward to doing it for many more decades to come.
All righty, thank you very much. Okay, let's get this
show on the road.
Yes, we'll get this show on the road. Give me just a second here. I got to get through this annoying Chuck Schumer. There we go. All righty. I just want to start us off with this quick piece from the Critical Drinker, who is one of my favorite YouTubers. He did a really well. He does these. He critiques a lot of film and stuff like that, comics as well. He does this occasional bit about what he calls production hell, and he did this one on the classic movie Apocalypse Now. And you go through this thing, and you're wondering how on earth did Apocalypse Now ever become the great movie it became, because the production was just a disaster from beginning to end. But we're going to share this bit here, which I just found was this quick bit here, which I think was just hilarious. So here we go.
Spent it on. When Dennis Hopper was having a tough time finding the energy to play his role, Coppola asked him what he needed to get into character. His reply was simple: about an ounce of cocaine ought to do the trick, Francis. The drugs were duly provided, and Hopper delivered most of his scenes high as a kite. What a legend.
Indeed, what a legend. Well, I think we have to have our Dennis Hopper salute for the evening, right? 1, 2, 3. All righty. Let's bring in Graham Nolan now. Graham, how are you this evening?
Very good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Can you give us give us a Dennis Hopper salute? All right, there we go. Okay, why don't you tell us? Tell us that you've been involved in comics for 35 years. I've read. Is that roughly correct? 35 years?
Yeah, it's 35 or 37. I can't remember.
Okay. And just briefly tell us, what was it like to hello, trust a second. What was it like to draw and work on Detective Comics?
Well, it was a dream of mine as a kid because Batman, I grew up watching the Adam West TV show. So Batman was always, a big part of my life. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I always wanted to do Batman, and I always wanted to do him in Detective Comics because that was the first comic that I ever bought that had Batman in it. And it was the flagship book that he first appeared in. And it was the title that gave DC its name. So to me,
Mm-hmm.
that was like the holy grail. So, I was just very Dennis Hopper, high as a kite to be able to work on that book.
All righty. Graham's run on Detective is one of my favorites. So you already got fans here. Wonderful. All right. Okay. Before we get to your new project, the Chenoo, let's do a quick bit of news here. First up, is this an idea whose time has come? A restaurant apologizes to encouraging customers to weigh themselves. A Chinese restaurant apologized for any offense caused when it placed scales at its entrance, and it suggested customers weigh themselves to determine what they should order. The I think it's Xi'an fried beef location in Changsha, Hunan province, said the scales and menu suggestions were put in place as a response to President Xi Jinping's call for the country to reduce food waste. The two scales were placed at the entrance to the eatery, and customers were encouraged to weigh themselves. The guide placed by the scales offered suggestions for food selection and portion sizes for men and women of various weight ranges. Woo! All right.
Wow.
I don't know. I'd like to. I just as an experiment, I'd kind of like to see that happen here at various fast food restaurants. Of course, some of these ones, some people would probably, yeah, but would they also want to weigh themselves an hour later? Of course, some people would get on the scale and it would just go all the way over to water. That's all you can have for tonight. Water. Alrighty, this next one up here is what I like to call would you do your business here?
Hello? Hello, I didn't lose the okay, I'm still here. Go on.
Yeah. I'm here. He froze. His computer froze.
Oh no.
Yeah. So you, as the guest host, have got to run with the ball now.
Phooey, let's see. Okay. Okay, so here's my question to you until he comes back. What was your first experience with art, and how did you get over the fear of failure?
Are you back?
Yes, I am. No, but please go ahead with his question. I'm thrilled that he picked up the slack. So my browser crashed.
Oh, okay. So, what was the question? How did I get over my fear of failure and what?
Well, so what was your first exposure to art and drawing? And as you were learning it, how did you get over the fear? So, in other words, for example, so I'm a photographer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people, when they start out as a photographer, they see these commercials and stuff, and they're amazing photos and whatnot. And what people don't realize is that what's being marketed to them is not the camera necessarily; it's the skill of the photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And so most people, when they see famous artists, let's say, they see this art and it's amazing, and they never make the assumption that the artist initially, when they started, was bad, couldn't draw a circle to save their life.
Right.
And so most people, when they start something out, just like I did initially because I hated art class and whatnot. Most people, when they start out, they may have a few blurry photos and whatnot, and they think either A, something's wrong with the camera or whatever, or they get discouraged after a month and they stop. And it takes time before you have that first one good image, and then you start to train your hand, your eye, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How did you keep pushing through it and gain your skill, or were you just naturally gifted?
Well, I mean, I probably had a proclivity and a talent for it because when I did it, people would say, "Oh, that's a good drawing," even though it sucked. But compared to other people, it was a good drawing. So that was encouraging to me to get better. getting over the fear of failure, that didn't happen until I was probably 40.
Wow.
And got really comfortable in my own skin artistically, and really had a handle on what I was doing, and was confident in my line work. You know, when you're an artist, especially as a storyteller, if you have a lack of confidence, it shows. It's the first thing that'll jump out. Once you get confident, then you get fearless, and that's when the work gets good.
Okay. Doc, I'll let you take it from here.
All righty. Well, let's just do one last bit of news. That was actually a good question. Thank you. And thank you for stepping up there as my browser crashed. At any rate, one last quick bit of news, and then let's talk about the Chenoo. And this one is, like I said, is called Would You Do Your Business Here? Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Okay. Whoops. That's it. Toilets with transparent walls installed in 2 Tokyo parks. I tell you,
Really?
the Japanese do some weird stuff. A pair of Tokyo parks are attracting extra attention for their unusual new features: public toilets with transparent walls. The restrooms, designed by Shigeru Ban Architects, is part of the Nippon Foundation's Tokyo Toilet Project. Feature see-through walls that turn opaque when a user enters the facility and locks the doors. The restrooms is installed at Yoyogi Fukumachi Mini Park and Haruno Ogawa Community Park are designed to allow those in need of facilities to quickly determine their cleanliness and whether they are already occupied.
Great idea.
You think it's a great idea, really? Why?
Well, I mean, think about it. So the way I'm understanding it is it's opaque when it's unoccupied. It's clear when it's unoccupied and opaque when it's in use.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, privacy conventions aren't being rendered asunder, and it allows people to see, like, okay, we need to call somebody. Somebody shut up the walls, install 3.
Well, okay, that's one way of looking at it. I kind of take the opposite view of, if I could kind of walk into a public restroom and know it's clean within about 2 seconds. And usually if I stand at the right angle, I can tell if the stalls are occupied. And then my other concern is, what if, what if I'm sitting there doing my business and whatever sensor is in the lock that breaks.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna have, how should I phrase this gently? Your exhibitionist, shall we say, who's gonna go in and think it's a great thing to not lock the door.
Oh God.
So I don't know. This kind of seems like a solution in search of a problem here, and one that's going to create bigger problems down the road. So, all righty, enough fun stuff. Let's move on to even more fun stuff and get over to the Chenoo. Do you have a screen you want to share, Graham, or do you just want to go to? Should I just bring up the
Indiegogo page?
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Here it is. Graham Nolan's The Chenoo. The coming blizzard is bringing something evil, something malignant with it, and it's hungry. Now, the Chenoo is kind of Native American folklore. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What is a Chenoo?
A Chenoo was a human being who scarred his soul through cannibalism and turned into an ice creature, and then is he has to hunt and eat the hearts of men to reclaim the warmth that he can never have.
Really? So I have a question, actually. Did you ever read Tony Hillerman books as a kid or as an adult? Because skinwalkers and stuff, that kind of those kinds of otherworldly beings are most definitely a focus of those kinds of books. I was wondering where you got the inspiration from.
Well, the inspiration came as I was on the 190, which goes along Lake Erie in Buffalo. And it was in the winter, and there was a storm coming in over the lake, and it was really dark and foreboding. The lake was frozen, And I thought, wow, that's a really cool setting for a horror story. And I pulled into a coffee shop, and I wanted to have some type of like a snow monster or something like that. So the first thing I did was look to see if there's any mythological things I could tap into. So I got on the internet and I found the Chenoo. It was part of a Native American lore from a I can't remember what tribe it was. It was a northeastern tribe.
I think when I was researching it today, I think it said Wabanaki, I think was the tribe.
That could be it. Are they like in New England? Were they?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be it.
Hold on just a second. But carry on.
Okay. Then once I had that, then I just had to develop the story, and kind of take little liberties with the mythology and work it to the story that I needed to tell. Which basically, this creature comes off the ice during the great blizzards. So in Buffalo, there was the blizzard of '77. Maybe you remember that if you're old enough.
I'm only 30, so I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, the blizzard of '77 was like this massive 1 in 500 year blizzard where snow drifts were as high as telephone poles. And so the Chenoo came on land during that storm. Only, authorities wouldn't tell people about it. And so now he's coming on land again during this killer storm that's on its way. And he traps 6 people in a house and hunts them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a claustrophobic tale of terror as these people are being hunted by this creature.
Shall we play the YouTube video?
Yeah.
All righty.
Good evening. Tonight's big story centers on the state of emergency declared this morning in Buffalo.
Between 4,000 and 5,000 cars said to be abandoned on city streets.
Buffalo is still very much a city under siege.
Space's wind whips the snow into 30-foot drifts.
Iowa Falls Air Base, one of their...
The low tonight, 10 below zero. Get off the streets and highways as soon as possible.
Looks good.
Yeah, that trailer was put together by Nick Grosh, who did an amazing job.
Nick Grosh, you said?
Yeah.
Does the comic actually take place in 1977? Is that when you base it, or is it was that just for the trailer?
No, the comic takes place today.
All right.
It references the blizzard of '77, and actually we hit a stretch goal which added 8 extra pages of story, so there'll be an 8-page story about the Chenoo in 1977 as well.
Now, does the Chenoo actually have any backstory in the comic, or is he just kind of just sort of come out and there's nothing, in others, we don't know who what I'm asking is that, the Chenoo is based on a human who scarred their soul. Do we actually know who that was in the comic, or you just kind of leave that?
No, I don't go into that, because to me, when you start to humanize monsters, you lose the terror. I don't want to know that Dracula lost his love or that he was a warrior or anything. All I need to know is that he's this horrible undead creature that wants to suck my blood. I don't want to know that the shark in Jaws is just doing what sharks do. They're just an animal that's eating. No, this is evil. It's just trying to eat me. So that makes it personal. I mean, other than the background of what a Chenoo is and what the legends are, and these people discussing what they have heard, you're not going to know too much more than you need to know about what it is.
Yeah, it seemed to me, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, in the early 90s and for a number of years, Hollywood kind of took a lot of their horror stuff in the direction of, having a quick scene in there that tries to explain psychologically the origin of whoever the monster or the bad guy was, or some abuse as a child or something like that. And it always, to me, just kind of sucked out some of the foreboding, because you just lost the mystery. You weren't able to project onto the creature that there's just this evil being and you don't understand why it's evil. It's just there. I think that was one of the reasons the Blair Witch Project in the late 90s was as successful as it was, because you didn't get any of that. It was out there, and you had no idea, and you could just project onto whatever it was the whole time. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's certain monsters that obviously Frankenstein, the Wolf Man, where we know who they are, and there's pathos there, and we feel for them. The Creature from the Black Lagoon, the same thing. But even though in the Mummy, they tell you the story about this guy and his forbidden love, he's still basically, like Dracula, a horrible, horrible creature. That you really can't get a lot of sympathy built up for. You'll get more sympathy for the Creature from the Black Lagoon, who's just minding his own business when these asshole humans come in and try to take him out. But this is not a pathos character. This is a straight up horror character.
So how many pages is the comic?
The main story is 48 pages, and there's 8 pages of the additional story, so it's 56 pages of story.
Now, let's see. There is a great poster here. You left off. I like this, the bookmark here, but this the poster meat. It's what's for dinner. Which perk is that? Can you get the poster with?
Well, you'll have to slide up there. We can see it. I think it's leveled. Oh, it's right there. It's the featured perk.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Okay. Excellent. Let me scroll down to a page or two here. Maybe you can just kind of give us a rundown. Is it going to be black and white, or is it going to be in color?
It's going to be black and white with red as the only color.
Very good.
Whenever there's blood, that's when you'll see red.
Okay, so these are, I'm assuming, some guys doing some ice fishing, correct?
Yep.
All righty. And
let me just say that in the two sequences coming up here in these pages, the two guys that end up getting killed, one of my perks was victim perk. And you could become a character in the series and have the Chenoo kill you. So that gentleman right there at the bottom that your cursor is on, that guy right there, he is a Buffalo native who got that spot.
Nice. And there he's going to get it. Yeah, there's the red. All right.
And that's his dad. That's the other guy. There was 2 spots available, so he bought one for him and one for his dad.
And his dad gets it too?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I had a lot of, I had quite a few of those in my comic book Tilt. I had a couple of, I actually had 4 things where you could get offed in the book. And one of them was going to be, you get your head chopped off from the nose up. And my younger brother actually took that one. However, I had to defer the chopping of the head off to issue 3, not into issue. You were going to be drawn into issue 2, not issue 1. But I had to defer that into issue 3 due to page space. But and believe me, his head getting chopped off is going to look much worse than that. So, but that's some nice art here. Very nice art. All righty. So, who is? Can you tell us a little bit about the family that gets stuck in the in the house, and what they kind of go through, without obviously giving away any spoilers here?
Well, it's not really a family. It's sort of a collection of people. We follow a police officer who ends up picking up a girl who worked at a coffee shop, who was running out into the snow after witnessing a death by the creature. And then, as the blizzard gets worse, the police cruiser ends up getting stuck in the snow, and they have nowhere to go. So they go to the only house that has a light on because he has a power generator. And so he goes into the house with the coffee girl, and in the house is the owner and his wife, and then two of his neighbors are there as well. And so that's the group that's stuck in the house.
Let me ask: is there any way to actually kill a Chenoo?
There is, but I'm not going to say because
spoiler.
It's a plot point. Yeah.
Excellent.
And it will definitely come into play.
Now, are you going to go? Oh, you already are in demand. Sorry, Alexander. What? Any questions for our guest? Hello, you there?
Hello. Hello.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Sorry
I can
about
hear
that. I muted myself.
All right.
So one of the things I was thinking of when you mentioned the color scheme, I know there are a couple of movies that have done that same thing. Were you inspired by that, or was it just the Arctic aesthetic where you really wanted the red to stand out? You know, kind of how Blood on Snow is so visible. And
it was
how
that. It was an aesthetic choice.
Mhm.
I love black and white horror films for one, but I wanted the color for the blood, and also for like the Chenoo, the old blood that's like surrounding his fur, from however many years past. I think that's kind of really creepy looking and cool.
Okay. One question I have to ask, because I've seen a number of horror films, and I mean I do love them. But one of the things I've always kind of been mildly irked about is that the characters never seem to do the presumably intelligent thing, in addition to freaking out and whatnot. Like they'll shoot something once and then not shoot it 2 or 3 times in the head to make sure it's dead, etc. That kind of stuff. Are these guys smart, or are they just
No, they're smart, and they're going to do everything they can to survive. Like you, I don't like in any genre movie, whether it's horror or whatever, characters that behave stupidly. Particularly in horror movies, it's almost a trope. The person walks into a dark house and doesn't turn the fucking light on. I mean, what is that? And we know the killer or the monster is in there. It's stupid stuff like that drive me nuts. So there'll be none of that in the Chenoo. These guys, when the crap gets piled on, it gets piled on in a logical way, in a story driven way, and the way they respond will be the same.
Okay.
Excellent. That's excellent question. I just had a question in my head. Now it's fled.
Nice alliteration there.
Yes. Let me think here for a second. Oh yes. Does the Chenoo? I mean, is he strong enough to say break down a door or smash through a window? I mean, is it one of the things where I guess without if this is a spoiler, then just say you don't have to answer. But is he able to get into the house without too much difficulty, or is it
physically? Yes. He's like 7 foot tall, 300 and something pounds. He could smash through any door or any kind of obstacle, but there's a reason he can't do that. And it's part of the story as well.
I see. Okay. So, to survive then, what are these people? I mean, are they trying to prevent him from getting in the house, or is it, they have to go outside for something, some kind of emergency. I'm curious as to what puts them in danger.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're pretty safe inside the house, but they can't stay safe in there because the power goes out, and then the chimney ends up getting blocked by the Chenoo. So he's trying to force them out of the house into the storm.
I see. Ah,
And
okay.
that's when the shit hits the fan.
I see. So this creature is actually fairly intelligent. Then it's not interesting. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I mean, the intelligence is like a base intelligence, the way a dog or an animal knows certain things instinctually because
A reptilian kind of intelligence.
what's that?
An almost reptilian kind of intelligence.
Well, maybe more than that. Reptiles are pretty stupid.
Yeah.
But I mean, like a dog, this is not his first rodeo. So he knows, what to do to hunt and to bring his prey out.
Does it have any aversion to think? Well, for sake of argument, how do you kill the damn thing? Does it just take a couple of 50 cal rounds, silver, chanting in Elvish?
I can't say because that's a story point.
That is true. Damn, sorry.
Nice try.
Oh well, don't worry. We coordinated that ahead of time.
That's all right.
We're going to try hard.
Either.
Let me ask this: what would anyone kind of interested in getting into the indie comic market? What advice might you give them?
Well, I mean, it really is the way to go. The paradigm is shifting. Commercial comics suck. The publishers are folding.
Really?
Well, they're in a lot of trouble. The distribution system is broken down. COVID was just the final straw to do that. But they've left their core readership behind them. So the numbers are the sales numbers are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the paradigm has changed for the creator because there's no reason for you to go to a corporate company and give them your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to own it and they're going to make the money out of it. And with crowdfunding and so many other options out there for you to get your ideas out there, I just say go for it. Go for it and own it.
All right.
There's no gatekeepers, stopping you from creating whatever crazy idea you may have,
Very good. Very, very good.
I think it's a great time for independent comics. People are getting more used to the idea of crowdfunding and stuff like that. When it was first new, people were like, oh, I put this money up, but how long is it before I actually get the book? And, a lot of guys, sort of drop the ball too, on their customers. So the main thing for me is customer service. And so with my campaign, my backers get an update every single week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've backed tons of campaigns that I've forgotten I backed because I've never gotten an update on, and I'm like, when I start looking back, I'm like, oh shoot, where's that book? It was supposed to be out a year ago or something, So, but my backers get an update every single week with a progress report of here's how many pages got done. Here's what this is being fulfilled. This is when this is going here and there and all that kind of stuff. So they are constantly, being fed, information about the campaign. And I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. I remember, I think during my campaign, I did probably at least 10 to 11 updates between the time I launched and the time I finally fulfilled. So yeah, it's definitely important to let your backers know, kind of what's going on. And what do you think is with the mainstream comic book industry? What do you think are some of their biggest problems right now? I know it's like, do you want the whole list or just the top 10, right? But if there's one or two that sticks out to you for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, now we're talking about corporate comics. We're talking about Marvel and DC.
Primarily, yes.
Yeah, primarily. that they stopped respecting their core readership base. They listened to a bunch of vocal fringe elements that don't buy the comics, and it's showing in their sales. They've got a monopoly distribution system which is collapsing, and they insult their readers when the readers don't buy the politically correct stuff that they're pushing down their throats at the expense of entertainment. Say a publisher has, really 3 jobs, entertain your reader, respect your reader, don't insult them, and customer service. If you do those 3 things, you can be successful. And they seem to be dropping the ball on all of them.
That's too bad. That's too bad. Okay. Any other questions, Alexander?
Well, so you mentioned fringe elements, and I'm curious as to what you mean in that sense.
Well, you've got people that are pushing social justice issues, identity politics as core elements of stories at the expense of entertainment and at the expense of characters. They're gender swapping established characters. The main problem I have with any of this, you see, I comics is an art form, so there's no boundaries on what you can or cannot do in them. And I'm not trying to say that that there are and that there shouldn't be comics about whatever. But what they're doing is the lazy route. They're taking established characters that are loved by people and they're gender swapping them, or they're making that character gay, or they're taking the core out of that character to put some social issue in there. And then when readers don't buy it, they insult the reader and say, well, you're just homophobic, or you're just racist, or you're just blah, 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 because this is a good comic. And that's just wrong. If you really want to say, okay, let's say for the sake of argument, we want to have a black character. Well, you don't turn a pre-existing character black. You create a new one that's really interesting, and you stand behind it. And then when it's successful, it's great, and when it's not, you own that. You own that character.
So what you're saying is it's less, and because now I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering how many black artists may have been sidelined, maligned, or not represented because they were barred from the publishing world because they were black. And so if you look at, I can understand being a person with liberal beliefs, as you may have gathered. I can understand some of that discomfiture, because when most of the faces of what you see, when most of the faces of the people that you're seeing who are deemed super white,
you went out on us there.
You know what I mean?
No,
well, you went out.
You understand at least my perspective?
No, we couldn't hear it. You went out.
Wait, do you hear me now?
Yeah,
Hello?
we hear you now. Yeah, we hear you now. Go ahead. Say what you were saying like the last 10 seconds.
Wait, what? So where did you hear me stop?
Let's see. You were talking about people being locked out, I think, and that
yeah,
and that we were right about there, I think.
Well, so what I was saying was that I think what might be an issue is the profusion, is the
you're still cutting out there, Alexander. Let me see if I can try to.
Talk on it. I'm next. Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Not
I
that
can.
far
I
away from
can
the
hear you.
router.
Let me see if I can try to do this some justice, and we'll get Graham to respond here. That is that have I guess what you're asking is have more minority artists and writers been kind of overlooked over the years in the industry? Is that roughly what you're asking about?
Essentially, yeah. Because if you look at it in terms of representation, what's a black kid supposed to do when every single hero that he sees is white and none of them look like him?
Mm.
What's you know what I mean?
No, you. First off, there's no shortage of people of color working in the business. There's a lot. The problem
Okay.
is that they're working for corporations that aren't allowing them to create their own stuff. So, or those artists aren't willing to take the risk to create their own stuff, and that's where independent comics comes in. If there's a void, let's say, of characters that don't represent you, well, then that's on you to create one for you and for your fans or your whatever that may be, whether it's sexual orientation, color, ethnic background, whatever that may be. If you feel that there's something missing, then create your own. That's a perfect opportunity to create something great. But creating a black character and calling him black something, or taking taking an established character like the Golden Age Green Lantern, who was in fact the first married superhero ever, was married in the Golden Age, and turning him gay doesn't make any sense to me, because now you've changed a character that was already pre-existing, and you're disingenuous to the gay community because you're defining that character now by his gayness. That's the problem. Is that, what, if you're a gay creator, then you know better than anybody that you have a very complex life. That's not defined by that one element. So if that's the one element is the driving force of everything in your story, that's a boring character and it's not going to succeed. So
True.
what I'm saying is that they don't want to take the risk and stand behind their creations, for either the success or the failure of those creations.
Yeah, I think superheroes in comics, you want the heroism, and then if you're going to introduce something like sexual orientation, what is it like to be gay when dealing with all of the other things that you are as a superhero? Introducing a character that way makes more sense than trying to take, like you say, an established character and then suddenly flip him into this thing that historically that throughout as long as that comic has been, that character has not been that way. Like you say, create new stuff. I think it's good advice.
Right. And let's not forget, we're still talking about superheroes, which are primarily children's entertainment. These are characters that wear their underwear on the outside. They always were created for, young people. And, when Alan Moore created Watchmen and Frank Miller did The Dark Knight, and brought this whole level of realism and darkness into comics, neither of them expected the industry to adapt that as the torchbearers going forward. Those are supposed to be one-off, one-shots,
Really?
look. Yeah, absolutely. Alan Moore loves the Silver Age of DC Comics and stuff like that. He never meant for all of DC to become this dark dystopian world that it's become. And the same thing with Frank Miller. It was a one-shot, standalone, other universe story. And what they have done is now everybody latches onto the dark part of the Dark Knight and not the KNIGHT part of him, the errant knight that is sacrificing. He's just a not misogynistic, but a what's the word I'm looking for?
Kind of cynical at times.
Cynical at the very least, but God, I'm having a brain fart. But the character is no longer heroic, and it doesn't seem, and seems the motivating factor behind him is not heroism. It's his own selfish needs.
Yeah, it's something dark in his psyche that he's
nihilistic. That's the word.
Nihilism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, just some guy. He did a really good video on the Watchmen and about how it deconstructed comics and superheroes, and now everything since then has been about deconstructing everything instead of trying to what it is we love about heroes, the heroism and so forth. And I admit I have liked some of the darker comics. I've liked some of the edgierness that especially Frank Miller brought out with the Dark Knight Returns. But to get some of that, you do run the risk of sacrificing some of the some of those more noble traits that we admire, and especially in this day and age, we could really use some more of that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I remember The Dark Knight being the film that really made me sit up and pay attention. Because when I first saw it, I just remember it really that may have also been one of the first films that may have also been one of the first films that got me into videography as well, just in terms of the cinematography and what, although I didn't know it at the time. But just something about it just drew me, and even though everything else fell into that same kind of ballpark, it just felt right. It just felt, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
none of it felt forced.
Well, yeah, I think that the Dark Knight. I mean, but even that movie though, there was still some here. He's still trying to live up to an ideal. He is still trying to save the city. He wants to turn Gotham around, and so even there, I mean, there's a darkness, but he's trying to be to some extent the light in that darkness. So I think there's still in that movie there was still an attempt at heroism. So yeah, I don't know, Graham. Maybe you don't agree.
I hated all those Batman movies.
Oh, what? Wow, geez. Tell us how you really feel. Boy, because The Dark Knight is one of my all-time favorite films. Not that I'm upset, mind you, but just wow, that's a really
they're not Batman movies. That's the problem. Is that every one of them, if you substitute James Bond and Q for Lucius Fox, they're all movies.
Wow.
Everything is answered with technology. There's no sense of Batman being a detective, the greatest detective in the world. So everything is solved that way. The Dark Knight itself was just a rambling plot of 3 different stories. I thought it was a sort of a chaotic mess. I mean, of the 3 Nolan Batman films, I thought the first one was the closest to being Batman. He seemed to have at least some sense of science because he developed the antitoxin. He came up with the Scarecrow's antitoxin. So at least he showed some intelligence there.
That's really interesting that you have that perspective because, for me, it was I love the scripting. I love the performances. It just all was a wonderfully complex and heady rush for me. Now, I'm saying this without having the kind of grounded, deeply intimate relationships with comics and with the source material that you have.
Right.
That's a really interesting perspective because for me, it's for me, everything fell on a line. And once Heath Ledger showed up on the screen as the Joker, it was over for me because he just completely stole the entire film. So I'm wondering, is it that I'm viewing the movie incorrectly, or
No, you're viewing it from your own perspective, which is you probably represent the regular general movie-going public because it was a very popular film. All the movies made a shit ton of money, so the target audience was hit. You know, are they great Batman films? That's the question. And the answer is no, they're not. They don't seem to understand who and what Batman is. This is a standalone movie version, and it's the vision of that director, but it's really not a great Batman film.
Interesting.
that leads to other questions.
Go ahead.
Well, okay, so I guess so. Then, what's your opinion on like Iron Man and the Avengers?
See, those nailed the source material. The first Iron Man movie, the one that started it all, they nailed the source material. The first Avengers movie killed it. Captain America killed it. It wasn't until they got to Thor Ragnarok where they jumped the shark.
Yeah, I mean, Thor Ragnarok was watchable, but it wasn't really enjoyable, if that makes sense. It just was like, oh, this is interesting.
They ruined the characters. They went away from source material, and they ruined Thor and they ruined Hulk for all future films, which was evidenced by the final Avengers movies, where Hulk gets his ass handed to him and becomes Soy Boy Hulk, and then Thor becomes the Big Lebowski.
And what are your thoughts on Thanos, by the way?
How so?
Well, his use in both Infinity War and the preceding one, because I felt that he was a very he was clearly one of the most. So as a voice actor, I felt that that the actor who played him did an excellent job. And just in terms, and I found his singular focus to be a horrifying, if intriguing one, and rather interestingly timed, given the stuff that we're going through now. Because it's interesting how the tone of the movies that have been coming out recently have kind of mirrored world events in terms of this fear of some great global cataclysm. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Thanos was a great villain for this cosmic story that they were telling, that leapt through all the Marvel movies. My only beef was that Thanos was too powerful physically. I mean, that he could stand toe to toe with Thor and with Hulk. I mean, that was ridiculous. But
and actually, the lead up to the comic, the Thanos quest, he actually says in that comic that a confrontation with the Hulk, which I've always strived to avoid, because there was just that was the one thing that just in Infinity War that just stood out to me right away was when he beats the Hulk, because I'm just immediately thinking back to the Thanos quest. I'm like, wait a minute, in that comic he said he strove to avoid that that battle. Who
wouldn't? This rage monster that gets stronger and stronger.
And you might have believed it if he'd actually had the used the power stone, the power gem at that point to best the Hulk. It might have been believable, but he never uses it in that scene. So,
that's true.
So at any rate,
yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know if you want to stick around for this, but Revolution and I need to review the comic HIRO, which we're going to do now. But otherwise, we can let you go.
Yep, I'm going to blow. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, thank you very much, and everybody. I will be dropping the Chenoo one more time into the chat there, and please do back it.
Yeah, less than 300 away from 75,000. So let's get this over the top, guys.
All righty.
You're going to do a great job, man. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great night,
Take care.
guys.
You too. Bye-bye. Good questions there. I like it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. Let's get to the comic book here. And let's see. Go to HIRO here. All righty. Yeah, he was a repository of knowledge.
Yeah. And the questions and stuff that I gave were good.
Oh, they were good, and I'm on board with you there. I mean, I love The Dark Knight; it's one of my favorite superhero movies. But now that he says that, it's like, well, he is right. It's in so many ways not a Batman film. But
then the question that I have is, well, he did do the detective work though, because most of the way we figure things out these days are done with technology. He's not running around with a magnifying glass.
Well, there are a few parts in there where he's kind of like a detective, but the detective stuff is far more. They consider him the world's greatest actual detective in the comic, and that is that comes out far more in the comics than it did in the movie. I mean, it was very technology based. He's absolutely right, and I think he actually had it wrong about the antitoxin in the first movie, because I actually think it was Lucius Fox that prepared that, as I recall. But at any rate, no, he is right. I mean, there is some detective. You're right. There is some detective stuff in those movies, but it's not nearly, as faithful to the source material as it could be, I think, on that score.
Well, what I realize is that at least in The Dark Knight, the focus is not on who is the Joker or what's his origin. The focus is who is he, and we need to stop him.
Yeah.
And the focus was more so about catching up to him so that he could stop him. And so that was I think that may be the reason why Batman was less on a fact-finding mission and more on a let's beat someone's ass and take
I mean, the other thing is Heath Ledger's performance was just so mesmerizing.
Yeah,
I don't know how many times I have gone back and just to on YouTube and drawn up
certain scenes.
Yeah, certain scenes when he's talking to the mobsters and manipulating them, and then he's trying to you can see the scene where Batman's interrogating him and he's kind of manipulating Batman, and Batman's trying very hard to not be manipulated, and it's just the whole his performance was just absolutely mesmerizing, and I think that that without his performance that movie would not have been what it is. So
it would not have been nearly as good.
So alrighty, let's talk about HIRO here. And HIRO, HIRO, stands for Hardware Integrated Reanimation Ordnance, and it follows a professor by the name of Dr. Leon Krupin, who is trying to reanimate dead soldiers to win a war between the U.S. and Russia. And basically, what he is secretly working on in kind of violation of the law. He's working on this at home as well as a military lab. And at the military lab, a spy steals the technology and gives it to a villain by the name of Volk, who is a psychopathic arms dealer. And let me scroll through a little bit of this here. So this is, I think his name was Boone, is one of his Dr. Krupin's bodyguard. And here, for the first time, he gets the technology to actually work. And you get this splash page here, which is kind of a nice splash page, the foot coming up and whack, kicking him away. And they have suddenly here's the villain Volk, and Volk now has the technology, and so they have to put a team together to go to Russia to try to find Volk and stop him from using the technology. And this here is actually a double splash page where they're looking over the mountain at Volk's little island in a lake sanctuary or whatever. And quite a few good action scenes here. And yeah, I mean, the plot's pretty simple. They have this very advanced technology. It falls into the wrong hands, and you're trying to go back and get it and stop it from going out into the from the villain from using it against you. And toward the end, the initial reanimated soldier is killed by the villain, and then the villain also kills the professor, and the technology then sort of melds with the professor, and he becomes the reanimated hero and takes out the villain. And then at the end, they're off to the next adventure, which is going to be trying to take down the actual Russian leader. I like the plot. Pretty, simple plot. Well, I don't know about super simple, but it's easy to understand. And while this is not my particular art style that I generally like, this art does work for me in that it does the two most important things that I think comic book art needs to do. It is three-dimensional throughout, like even the little fingers here, which I've seen a lot of artists, not so much in indie comics, but in mainstream comics, cheat on the hands.
Really?
Yeah, I that's becoming a bigger and bigger beef of mine. You can always kind of
How
tell.
do you cheat on hands?
You make it look flat. See how it looks kind of round there? Looks kind of three-dimensional. You make it look flat. And then the other thing it needs to do, and it needs to do that because you're on a two-dimensional space, all right? And the other thing it needs to do is movement, because these are, static pictures. They don't actually move. So you have to draw your characters so that they move. I mean, look, the knife's going in. He's moving backward. His eyes are wide open as he gets stabbed. There was even a page here, and I don't think I uploaded it, where his sister, who he gets reunited with, is actually, she was meditating, and before she put together this pulse weapon, but even in that scene where everything, somehow they kind of made it look like movement. So that actually works.
Well, I think the movement stuff was essentially done using just the way they framed it, and also they use, I think, movement lines.
Yeah.
Like the as a photographer, just the way that a lot of the shots are framed. One of the books that I have is Time Magazine's I think 100 years of photography or whatever, and they have a lot of shots and stuff from D-Day and whatnot, and the Hindenburg and that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I noticed was, a number of these shots are, out of focus or badly framed, or things are blurred. But what makes it a fascinating picture is the context of what's in the frame. And so when you look at each of these pictures, you know what I mean? It's like what's in the frame is something that is mesmerizing, that draws the eye. And so each of these snapshots are taken, you know what I mean? So it's just a way of seeing, I guess.
No, you're right, and so that's what I liked. I thought the pacing was good. There's slow moments, but then they're replaced by then the action picks up, and so the pacing of this was I thought really good. Now let's see. There was a page here that I guess I did not upload it, but there after the HIRO, we'll call him the HIRO because that's what he is, the hardware integrated reanimated ordnance, gets in the fight with Boone, and then he has Boone on the ground, and Boone, I think, looks up and says, little help, Professor, and it's not, and then suddenly the HIRO jumps up and his hands are up like, oh, did I do something wrong? But there was no, what did the professor do or say to get the HIRO to get off of Boone? So that was pretty. There just was nothing there, but it was pretty minor. But there are a few little things like that. And then let's see, where did this this is an augmented, this character here was an augmented human that Volk had, the villain Volk had created. Kind of, where does that come from? I mean, is Volk now, has he figured out the technology? Is he using it? It wasn't clear. I mean, it's great that they introduced this character, because you had something that was a match for the HIRO here and was able to really do some serious damage to him before, so that at the end, when Volk has captured all the other members of the party, and he's about to turn one of them into an augmented human, the HIRO manages to crawl in and free them. But here was this here is a little, initially was a little confusing here. They're trying to this augmented human, it looks like he's about to beat HIRO. The other members of the party fire the pulse gun at him, and the augmented human turns around to attack them, and then all of a sudden it's like, what was going on here? And then in the next page you see the HIRO's holding a machine gun, and it took me a minute to going back and forth a couple times, say, oh, okay, what you're showing is that the HIRO had grabbed the machine gun and now is shooting the augmented human. It took me a little while. So little things like that, were little problems in the book. And then the final one was when the initial HIRO is killed, and then the professor is killed. The professor jumps up with his hands tied behind his back and goes charging at Volk, which seemed a little bit out of the professor's character. I mean, he doesn't seem up to that point this kind of rash, really bold type of character who would just jump up and rush the guy. So that's slight. But the final one is, why did the technology, this HIRO technology, then just suddenly decide, oh, hey, or say that, hey, the professor here, the Dr. Kruppen is my creator, and I'm going to launch myself. The technology decides to launch itself onto him. I didn't know up to that point that's what the technology could do. I was like, that kind of just came out of nowhere. And now there may be a reason for that, okay, but we need a little bit of a reason for why that's the case, and that came out of nowhere for me. So,
and also doesn't he suddenly turn into another hero in like 2 seconds?
Yeah, that transformation was quick. Again, you could kind of explain that away, and go ahead though. I'm sorry.
No, you can't explain it away, because at the very start of the novel, the doctor is sitting there going through a full on testing thing and checking everything out and looking at levels and whatnot, and it looks like something that's been going on for at least a few hours. And so, I mean, I do have my own notes that I wrote down, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me finish with this. This one other thing. Why did him falling over and all of a sudden get Volk to drop the knife and turn away? Because Volk has not backed down from a challenge yet. And so why did this sudden him falling over, the professor falling over and transforming suddenly, why does that cause Volk to react the way he does? It also, again, seems a tad out of character. I guess you might be able to explain the quick transformation over the fact that the professor has been, throughout some parts of the comic, he's looking at the code in the HIRO technology, saying things are changing, it's doing something here. So maybe that it was intended to kind of explain what happened here, but you don't really connect the dots. If you were going to use, the program's changing, the technology is adapting, you need to explain that a little better, so that when what happens here actually just doesn't seem like it comes out of left field. So go ahead though.
Well, so for me, one of the things that I liked about the comic was the art. It reminded me a lot of Mouse. Just something. It's just something about the exaggerated expressions and the kind of grittiness and earthiness I found to be very appealing aesthetically. Beautiful colors. But there were issues that I had. So the plot was a little bit cliched and campy, but kind of vague. But that kind of adds to its charm. So in light of my knowledge of the U.S. military's history regarding covert research programs, I find it really a little interesting that HIRO is referenced as a breakthrough for freedom because if you look at the potential amount of money that was likely burned in terms of the creation of the technology, that the extraction of the scientists, all that kind of stuff, the setup of the facility, how much of that could have been used for other things from a purely altruistic standpoint. We already have enough stuff that can go boom, and so I say that because I remember just little things that I noticed, like for example, there are several points at which it seems the original personality of the actual soldier in question seemed to try to surge to the surface or reassert itself, and so I'm like, what form did this dude sign? It was like, yeah, feel free to just reanimate my corpse. Yeah, so there's that. I see a lot of problems with the HIRO's design from the conceptual standpoint, because it seems that that this thing's only real advantage is that it's fast and stronger than a normal human, and and whatnot. It is not seen to have. It's not ultra dense. It doesn't have implanted armor plating. None of that kind of stuff. I mean, if this thing gets hit with a couple of waves of overpressure from a thermobaric nuke or something, or a tomahawk, or even a 50 caliber round to the stomach, that thing's done. There's a gigantic weakness in terms of the huge, highly visible neon blue tube running from the backpack to the back of its head. Dude's just running around in a set of short shorts. It's, let's see here.
Well, I think on some of some of what you were just saying, though, we do see in the book, though, that the HIRO is getting chopped up and he's still fighting. So that's, he's still trying, even when his arm gets, or the top part of his hand gets chopped off, when he gets cut badly in the shoulder, this thing keeps fighting because technically it's dead and can't, and things that would, cause a normal human being to probably collapse, this thing keeps fighting. So I think there's some of that there. This thing can certainly take a lot more damage than a normal human being can. So that is that gives this soldier advantages that other soldiers wouldn't have.
I was also wondering, though, like, what is this supposed quality that this thing searches for? Because he brings it up once, vaguely implies that it looks for courage, which is about as nebulous and undefined a concept as you can. Like, how do you quantify that in terms of like neurological signatures? Are you looking for testosterone? Because I mean, you might have a soldier that has a huge amount of testosterone in his adrenal glands or whatever. When he dies, there is nothing that implies that this dude was courageous. There are ways it could have been set up to be more feasible or more realistic, but I'm overthinking this. Yeah. I'm really overthinking this. So.
Okay, well, hey, it's your first show, and you've raised some good points here. So that's overthinking. It's better than, I think, probably better than underthinking it.
One thing I do love, though, I loved the kind of G.I. Joe-esque thing with the enemy soldiers in like the red armor and stuff. Like, I really wish they'd kept that aesthetic throughout everything else. Like, because you only saw those red armored guys once. Like, when I saw that, I actually started grinning, and then I think the rest of the dudes are normal. I'm like, well, that's no fun. So it was fun though. I enjoyed it. I just tend to look at things and then start digging, and that's when I start finding problems.
All righty. Why don't we call it there? We're about already an hour and 15 minutes. It says, if you can get that all across in 48 pages, be my guest. Okay, page. Also, once again, read the freeze. It'll explain a lot of info. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. And some need. Okay, yeah, I remember reading the Free Zero.
Oh yeah,
and not
Macho Man.
yeah. So yeah, you're right. I mean, there is only certainly Macho Dan is right that there is only there is only so much you can get across in 48 pages. You do have to, well, you do have to take some leaps here, but I think yeah. So why don't we call it there? And I think HIRO. I'll just sum up by saying I enjoyed HIRO. I'm looking forward to issue 2.
Yeah.
And yeah. Yeah, well, go ahead and send the link. That'll be fine. But
yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the experience. I've never really had a chance to read independent comics in terms of the binding and the quality. Like, it was a top-notch product. I would definitely pay actual money for it. So, you really did a great job. And I mean, even though I have artistic skills, I can't draw like that. So you guys did a really amazing job. And I really have to say, I didn't necessarily know what the process is for creating a comic, but I know it's not easy. So I mean, kudos to the author for putting it out there, because I mean it's a labor of love, and that's your baby. And the fact that you managed to come up with an idea, write a script, write a story, pitch that story, get it, all that stuff. You did a great job, man.
All righty. Okay, thank you, everyone, and thanks to our guest Graham Nolan for showing up. Yeah, well, thank you. And all righty, we will be back next week. Have a good evening, everyone.